Two people opened the exact same brokerage account on the exact same Monday, same age, 31, same salary, same $500 going in every month, automatically, no exceptions. On paper, these two should retire on the identical day with the identical number. Meet Marcus and Elena. 30 years later, Elena has just over $1 million. Marcus has about 190,000. Same income, same deposits, same market, same 3 decades. One of them is 5 times richer than the other, and not a single dollar of that gap came from earning more, getting lucky, or picking some secret stock nobody else knew about. The entire difference came from 3 mistakes. Marcus made all 3. Elena avoided them. And here's the strange part. Elena isn't smarter than Marcus. She's not more disciplined in any way you can see. In fact, every January she does one thing with her phone that looks completely insane, borderline reckless. If you watched over her shoulder, you'd think she was sabotaging herself. Hold on to that. It's going to explain everything. Because once you see exactly what these 3 mistakes are, and more importantly, why your own brain is wired to make all 3, you are going to recognize at least one of them in your own account. Maybe all 3. And you'll understand why the market can go up for 30 straight years and you can still end up broke at the finish line. Here's the idea I need you to swallow before anything else lands. In investing, there is no neutral. There is no, I'll get to it later. No, I'm just being careful. No, I'm waiting for things to calm down. Every single year, your money is either compounding for you or quietly decompounding against you. You are always on one side of that line. And most people spend their entire investing lives convinced they're being responsible while they're actually bleeding out one slow, invisible mistake at a time. This is Fininvest logic, and the whole point of this channel is to show you the machinery underneath your money, the parts the industry is perfectly happy to let you misunderstand. So if you've ever felt like you're doing everything right and the number still won't move, hit subscribe, because today we're pulling apart the 3 exact leaks that drain ordinary investors, in the precise order they do the most damage. Quick note so the lawyers can uncurl their fists. I am not your financial advisor. This is not financial advice. It is just a clear look at how compounding actually behaves and how human beings actually behave around it, which, spoiler, are 2 completely different things. What you do with your money is on you. So let's start with a number nobody frames correctly. Over the long run, the broad US stock market has returned somewhere around 10% a year on average. Not every year, some years it's up 30. Some years it's down 20, but averaged across decades, roughly 10% before inflation. That's the engine. That's the thing that turns $500 a month into $1 million without you doing anything heroic. Now, here's the gut punch. Study after study finds that the average investor does not earn 10%. The average investor earns dramatically less than the very funds they own. Morningstar runs an analysis on this every year, and they keep finding the same thing. The typical investor lags their own investments by more than a full percentage point annually, sometimes a lot more, purely because of when they choose to buy and when they choose to sell. Sit with that for a second, because it's almost absurd. You can own the exact right fund, the boring, diversified, does everything for you, index fund, and still underperform it. The fund made 10, you made 8. Where did the other 2% go? It didn't go to fees. It didn't go to taxes. It evaporated into the gap between what the market gave and what your own behavior allowed you to keep. That gap has a name. People call it the behavior gap. And it is the single most expensive thing in your financial life, far more expensive than any bad stock pick. Because here's the thing about a stock pick, One bad one costs you once. The behavior gap costs you every year, compounding against you, for as long as you invest. The 3 mistakes we're about to walk through are not 3 separate problems. They are 3 different leaks, all draining from the same tank. 3 different ways your brain reaches in and interrupts the compounding before it can do its work. Let's drain them one at a time. Mistake number 1 is the one that feels the most responsible while it's quietly making you the poorest. It's waiting, sitting in cash, telling yourself you're being smart, waiting for the right time to get in. Maybe the market's at an all-time high, so you wait for the dip. Maybe there's scary news, so you wait for things to calm down. Maybe you just want to do more research first. It always sounds prudent. It is never prudent. It is the most expensive form of caution ever invented. Here's why. The stock market does not climb in a smooth, polite line. It does almost all of its work in tiny, violent bursts, a handful of explosive days scattered randomly across decades. And there's a widely cited analysis from J.P. Morgan that makes this almost painful to look at. Take a 20-year stretch, invest $10,000, and just stay in the whole time. You end up with a healthy multiple of what you started with. Now run the exact same 20 years, but miss only the 10 best days. Just 10 out of roughly 5,000 trading days. Your final number gets cut roughly in half. Miss the 20 best days, and you've given up the majority of your entire return. From sitting out 20 days across 2 decades. And here's the trap inside the trap. Those best days don't show up on calm, sunny afternoons when you feel confident and ready. They cluster right next to the worst days. The biggest up days in market history happen in the middle of the scariest crashes, usually within a week or 2 of the biggest down days. So, the exact moment your gut is screaming, "Get out! Wait for it to calm down," is the exact moment the market is about to hand out its best paydays. The person sitting in cash waiting for clarity is guaranteed to miss them, because clarity always arrives after the rebound, never before. So picture Marcus, smart guy, cautious guy. He opens the account, funds it, and then he reads a headline about a recession that might be coming. So he keeps his $500 a month sitting in the cash side of the account. Safe, waiting. He'll deploy it when things look better. 3 months go by. 6, the right time never announces itself, because it never does. A year of contributions just sits there earning nothing, while the market does what the market does. This is the toll booth nobody warns you about. You think you're avoiding risk. What you're actually doing is paying a fee. The fee of every compounding day you sat out, and that fee is invisible, which is exactly why it's so brutal. A bad investment shows up on your statement in red. Sitting in cash shows up as nothing at all. There's no line item that says this is what you lost by waiting. So it never feels like a mistake. It feels like patience. It's the most expensive thing you'll ever mistake for patience. And the cruelest part, time is the one ingredient you can never buy back. You can always add more money later. You can never add more time. $1 invested at 30 has 35 years to compound. That same dollar invested at 40 has lost a decade of doubling. And in the world of compounding, the early decades are the ones that matter most. Waiting doesn't delay your wealth. It deletes the most powerful years of it permanently. If mistake 1 is failing to start, mistake 2 is failing to stay. And this is the big one. This is the leak that drains the most from the most people, by far. Mistake number 2 is letting fear make your trades for you. Panic selling. Here's how it kills you, mechanically. The market drops. Not a little, a real drop. The kind that's all over the news. The kind where every expert on television is suddenly very serious. Your account, which felt like a number on a screen, suddenly feels like your actual life savings catching fire. Every cell in your body says the same thing. Make it stop. Sell, get to safety. So, you sell. And the moment you sell, you have done something that sounds impossible to undo, but you do it anyway. You have converted a temporary on-paper loss into a permanent, realized one. The market was never going to keep your money. It was going to hand it back, with interest, if you'd just sat there. But you didn't sit there. You locked the loss in. And then, because the human brain is consistent, if nothing else, you wait on the sidelines until you feel safe again. Which, remember, only happens after the recovery, and you buy back in higher than you sold. Read that sequence back. You sold low, you bought high. You did the exact opposite of the one rule a child could recite. And you did it not because you're stupid, but because you're human. And your nervous system is older than the stock market by a few 100,000 years. It cannot tell the difference between a falling portfolio and a charging predator. It just floods you with the urge to run. Buying high and selling low isn't a beginner error. It's the default factory setting of the human brain, and it activates hardest in exactly the people who care the most about their money. Now, remember Elena. Remember the insane thing she does with her phone every January. Here it is. She logs into her brokerage, confirms her automatic $500 a month is still running, and then she deletes the app. Off her phone, gone for the entire year. She cannot check it, she cannot tinker with it. She cannot, in a moment of 2 a.m. panic, open the app and tap the sell button while the news is screaming. That's not recklessness. That's the opposite. Elena understands something Marcus doesn't, that her biggest enemy isn't the market. It's the version of herself that shows up during a crash. So she removes the weapon from her own hand before the panic ever arrives. She's not braver than Marcus during a downturn. She just made sure that when the downturn comes, she physically can't do the thing that would hurt her. She automated the deposits and she amputated the panic button. That is the whole trick, because here's what actually happens in a crash to the person who can't sell. Their automatic $500 keeps buying, every single month, all the way down. They are quietly scooping up shares at a discount, while everyone else is dumping theirs in a panic. When the recovery comes, and historically it always has, they don't just recover. They rocket, because they bought a pile of cheap shares at the bottom that the panic sellers handed them. The crash, for the person who automated and looked away, isn't a disaster. It's the single best buying opportunity of the decade. Same crash, 2 completely opposite outcomes. The only variable is whether your hand was on the sell button. Mistake number 3 is the sneaky one, because it disguises itself as ambition. It's chasing the hot stock, the hot fund, the thing your coworker won't shut up about. The coin that tripled last month, the actively managed fund with the dazzling brochure and the confident manager. It's the belief that wealth comes from finding the next big winner, instead of from owning everything, cheaply, forever. And chasing bleeds you in 2 directions at once. The obvious one is performance. The thing that tripled last month is, almost by definition, the thing you're buying at the top, right before it gives most of it back. You're not buying a winner. You're buying a winner's exhaust fumes. By the time something is hot enough for you to hear about it, the easy money already left. But the quiet drain, the one that's even more lethal because it never feels like anything, is fees. Let me show you what a fee actually does, because the number sounds harmless and the damage is enormous. Say you're in an actively managed fund charging 1% a year. 1%. That sounds like a rounding error, right? Pocket change. Here's the problem. It doesn't come out of your gains. It comes out of your entire balance, every year, forever, and it compounds against you exactly the way your returns are supposed to compound for you. Run it across a full investing lifetime. 40 years of compounding, and that harmless 1% fee can quietly consume somewhere around a quarter to a third of your final wealth. A third. Warren Buffett has pointed out that fees in the 2% range, dragged across enough decades, can eat the majority of what an investor would otherwise have made. You did all the saving. You took all the risk. You sat through every crash. And the fund manager, just for the privilege of underperforming a simple index, walks away with a third of your retirement. That's not investing. That's renting someone else's confidence and paying for it with your future. So, while Marcus is jumping from hot fund to hot tip, paying a fee on every one, watching each shiny thing fizzle, Elena is doing something that looks almost boring enough to be a joke. She owns a low-cost, broadly diversified index fund. That's it. She owns a tiny slice of basically everything. She pays almost nothing to own it, and she never touches it. She's not trying to beat the market. She figured out the secret that took the rest of us years, that for almost everyone, the boring core is the win. Not because it's clever, but because it stops you from doing all the things that lose. 3 mistakes: failing to start, failing to stay, failing to keep it simple. And notice, every single one of them does the exact same thing underneath. Every one of them interrupts the compounding. Mistake 1 never lets it begin. Mistake 2 breaks the chain in the middle. Mistake 3 siphons it off the side. They're not 3 problems. They're 3 doors into the same room, and the room is called the behavior gap. There's a line from Warren Buffett that explains this entire video in 1 sentence. He said, "The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient." Read that again, because it's not a motivational poster, it's a literal description of the mechanism. Every dollar Marcus loses by waiting, by panicking, by chasing, doesn't vanish. It gets transferred. It flows out of the impatient hands and into the patient ones. Into Elena's. The market is a machine that quietly moves wealth from the people who can't sit still to the people who can. And the 3 mistakes are simply the 3 ways you volunteer to be on the wrong end of that transfer. Now, I can already hear the objection, because it's the one I get more than any other. This is fine for people with money to invest. I can barely cover my bills. $500 a month. I don't have $500. Okay, fair and real. So let me be clear about what actually matters here. The amount is not the point. The mistakes are the point. If 500 isn't your number, the number is 50 or 25. The destination doesn't change based on how fast you walk toward it. It just takes a little longer to arrive. Someone investing $50 a month and avoiding all 3 mistakes will, over a lifetime, demolish someone investing $500 a month who makes all 3. Because the mistakes don't scale down with your income. A panic sell wipes out a percentage, and a percentage hurts the small account exactly as much as the big one. You don't need a lot of money to start compounding. You need to stop interrupting it. That's free. That's available to you today, at whatever number you can actually manage. So let's put real numbers back on Marcus and Elena, because this is where the abstract becomes something you can feel. Same $500 a month, same 30 years, same underlying market returning its long-run average. Elena avoids the 3 mistakes. She started immediately instead of waiting. She automated and deleted the app instead of panic selling through 3 separate crashes. She owned the cheap, boring core instead of chasing and paying fees. Her money compounded uninterrupted for 3 decades, and it crossed $1 million. Marcus did everything that felt smart in the moment. He waited months at a time for the right entry. He sold near the bottom of 2 of those 3 crashes because he couldn't watch it bleed. He chased for different hot funds and paid a fee on every one. He invested the same $500 a month into the same market for the same 30 years, and he finished with around $190,000. The gap between those two lives, over $800,000, is not a gap in income. It's not a gap in luck. It's not a gap in intelligence. It is, dollar for dollar, the price of 3 mistakes, charged once a year, compounded for 30 years. The market gave both of them the same 10%. Elena kept it. Marcus leaked it. That's the whole story. And before you assume Elena is some rare financial genius, understand how uncommon her actual behavior is. Not her knowledge, her behavior. Almost everybody knows you're supposed to buy low and sell high. Almost nobody can do it, because doing it requires sitting calmly through the exact moments designed to make you panic. The information is everywhere. The behavior is almost nowhere. That's why this works. You're not trying to outknow the crowd. The crowd already knows. You're trying to outbehave them, which is far rarer and far more valuable. You are trying to be the one person at the table who keeps their hand off the sell button when the room catches fire. And it feels lonely while you're doing it, because patience always looks like inaction right up until the moment it looks like genius. Now here's the uncomfortable truth underneath all 3 mistakes. The enemy here is not Wall Street. It's not a room full of bankers in suits scheming to take your money. It's worse than that, in a way, because it's closer. The enemy is the 3-pound, 200,000-year-old organ sitting between your ears. Your brain was built to keep you alive on a savanna. It is exquisitely tuned to flee from danger, to chase what's working for the tribe right now, to avoid commitment until the threat passes. Every one of those instincts kept your ancestors alive. And every one of them is financial poison. Fleeing danger makes you panics. Chasing what's hot makes you buy tops. Waiting for the threat to pass makes you sit in cash forever. The market didn't make you poor. Your survival wiring did, by doing exactly the job it evolved to do, in the one environment where that job is catastrophic, which is genuinely good news if you think about it. Because you can't out-argue Wall Street, but you can absolutely build a system that takes the decision away from your savannah brain. That's all Elena did. She didn't become braver or smarter. She built guardrails. Automatic deposits so the choice to invest is already made. A deleted app so the choice to panic isn't available. A boring index fund so the choice to chase never comes up. She didn't beat her instincts in a fair fight. She made sure the fight never happened. And this is exactly the thing the most common comment on this channel asks about. Some version of, okay, I get it, but how do I actually build that system for myself? Where do I even start? So I put the whole thing, the automation setup, the simple core portfolio framework, the exact guardrails that make the 3 mistakes physically harder to commit into a free starter guide for the Fininvest Logic community. It's me handing you the system instead of just describing it. The link's in the description, and it'll be there whenever you're ready. No rush. The market will still be there next week, and so will the mistakes. Now think back to Marcus and Elena one more time. Same age, same salary, same $500. Same market, same crashes, same 30 years. The $800,000 canyon between them was never about money coming in. It was about 3 mistakes, and whether they let their oldest instincts make their newest decisions. Marcus isn't lazy, and he isn't dumb. He did what felt safe, what felt ambitious, what felt human, every single time. And every single time, the human move was the wrong one. Elena isn't a genius. She just decided, early, that she would never trust herself in the moment, so she built a system that didn't need her to be brave. Here's the thing to hold on to. Avoiding these 3 mistakes is not a talent. It's not an IQ. It's a set of decisions you make once, on a calm day, so you're panicking, chasing, Waiting future self never gets a vote. Start now instead of waiting. Automate it and look away. Keep it boring and cheap. That's it. That's the entire game, and the door is open to you at whatever number you can manage today. Stop interrupting the compounding, and let it do the one thing it has always done for the people patient enough to leave it alone. Quick reminder, I'm not a financial advisor, and this is for educational purposes only. What you do next is on you. Now, go close the gap.